So, mm,
Okay, you ready, my dear?
mhm. We
We
invoke
invoke
the
the spirit
spirit of
of
Shamael,
Shamael,
angel
angel
of
of
sacred
sacred sound.
sound. May
May
the
the
sound
sound
of
of
light
light
surround
surround
us.
us.
May
May
the
the
light
light
of
of
sound
sound
guide
guide
us.
us. May
May
sacred
sacred sound
sound
come
come
through
through us
us
for
for
the
the
harmony
harmony of
of
all.
all.
Hmm. Hmm.
You know, it's so simple, but it's so profound and so deep. Like you can feel the opening upon these invocations. So thank you. What a beautiful way to start.
Thank you.
Well, everybody, we have brought back the sound healing couple extraordinaires, Jonathan and Andi Goldman, and we have had them on the show 2 or 3 times now. I'll put links up to the previous episodes. I'll put in the full bios and everything for
You
them
say
there
that.
too.
Sometimes you forget though. So let's just go searching for it. You'll come across them. But
I
there's lots of
promise this
beautiful.
time we'll have the
We'll do
full
it?
bios
Okay.
and everything, and you'll see the links for the previous episodes. So if I ever miss it, email me, let me know. But we love chatting with Jonathan and Andi, and I think we had them first on with the energy, frequency, and vibration series that we did. And I mean, I honestly think you guys are two of the epitome of the sort of world of sound healing and everything that you guys have done. You guys have been doing it for such a long time. I always love to get your feedback on what's working, what's not working, just your personal experience. Because I think when people have had the amount of experience that you guys have had in this world, you want to talk to those people. You want to hear what's gone on, what's working, what's changed, because this is as we even navigate the world of, say, energy medicine, there's a lot of nuances in this, and there's a lot of different pieces to it. And so it's nice to have these types of conversations and see where they land for people. But I mean, they've co-authored chakra frequencies, and the humming effect, which we were just talking about, is something that we do with our kids almost every night before bed. Last night's turned into louder and louder humming to oming to then just full out laughter. But by the time we all went to bed, um, and you can check out all of their stuff at healingsounds.com. But I want to dive into it with these guys. So, Jonathan, Andi, welcome to the show again.
Oh, Tia and Jason, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for inviting us back. We are delighted to be back. And we were looking very forward to getting together with you guys today. So
It is a blessing. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And again, happy 23rd anniversary to the two lovebirds.
thank you. Thank you again.
I feel like we almost talked to you guys after your last anniversary too, because I remember joking with you guys about your picture that looked like you guys just left Woodstock. And the same picture comes up and I say, it almost looks the same. So maybe we got to keep like on a yearly basis or something where we just catch up and see where you guys are at.
Well, if we're going to be talking about the new earth and all that stuff, then it comes to the level that time and space are not the constrictive elements we once thought that they were. And this comes from Star Trek, but they are basically constructs of the lower mind. And as we evolve beyond that, we see that the limitations of time and space may be quite different than what we once thought they were.
You know, what's interesting. We spoke with Lee Carroll and Monica, I think a week after you guys did. And we were, when we got on with Lee, he said, we're just having a few technical difficulties and our team is just going to check it out before we start. And we said, oh, that's really interesting. Apparently we've heard that high frequency beings, or the level of higher frequency, actually does a number with technology. And he said, yes, we had Jonathan and Andi on the episode last week and they caused havoc.
I remember that.
And I just had a lovely conversation with Lee yesterday. So he's a blessed being, and Monica's great. And
oh, lovely, lovely.
How cool that on a level we get to etherically, if not vibrationally, hang with each other and co-create together.
Well, it's interesting because technology there's so much about it that is overwhelming and that is, really, I don't know, kind of depletes the energies and so forth, because you're always on technology, iPhones. But then we look at the blessing of technology that is allowing us to right now talk with you guys on Vancouver Island. I think you are there, and we are here in Boulder, Colorado. So blessings to technology. So we love technology when it can do this.
As long as it doesn't control us.
Absolutely.
It's definitely it's definitely where we are right now. I feel like this is coming up in lots of things. It's like, and this is a part of what I think is really important about this whole concept of creating new earth. It's almost like, what are the parts that really work, that are really beneficial, that are really supportive for humans in general and for the planet and for all of this and for consciousness? What do we want to bring forward? And what really do we realize at this point is maybe not serving as much? And maybe not even that it was necessarily bad or negative before, but maybe it's run its course and it's really not suitable for where we're moving to. To me, this is the conversation that we need to all have from many perspectives. And this is why we're talking to people around education and finance and business and health and all of these things, because I think we need to really have a really good look at all of it and discern, what do we want to take with us? I feel like this is kind of where we're at right now.
Well, I just, what came to me was, you don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. And too many people do that, where with all the extraordinary aspects of shift and change that are occurring, somehow, let's see what works and honor it. And if it doesn't work, then don't use it. But it's not bad, because the thing that we're constantly in a situation of fluidity. And as we shift and change, something may work at one time, but if we hold on to it, and this is the be all and end all of whether it's manifestation, health, harmony, or whatnot, you get locked into it, and then all of a sudden this starts happening, and whoa, how about let's play together in balance and harmony, which is probably a key to this whole phenomena of the new consciousness, new earth.
And I think with the new earth, well, people are talking a lot about the new earth coming in. And personally, I feel that we are in the new earth right now. And that those of us who have been light workers forever, we have been fueling that beautiful positivity of light and love into our planet. And I think it's just growing and growing to that now there is this movement of the new earth. And that new earth really is looking at love and positivity and compassion and harmony versus the fear and the negativity. And so we're at that place where, there is this sort of juncture, and the new earth folks or the new earth energy or the new earth frequency is moving very, very beautifully, I feel, into this new way of embracing our humanity, basically.
So last night we were at dinner, and with a little bit older couple. We were ancient, but they're even more ancient, which is okay. And this fellow was talking about the fact that the planet was going to pieces. And I said, I don't think so. I think that there are elements that are trying to put us in fear and control us. And through the manipulation of the fear and the control, then you believe that. I said, but if we can somehow gain the empowerment of, through using love and compassion, I think you nailed it there, Andi, and we all know this, it's just so very, very important, then we can indeed approach a new consciousness and a new level of understanding.
Well, and I want to just add to that, when he was saying, we're just going to pieces, I think we have to go to pieces first, and then, we've got that opening to move into new earth.
So I have to bring this back into sound, sorry.
Oh, right.
Because, and ultimately I will, but just with regard to that, there is a phenomena of sound that is displayed by something called cymatics, which is basically visual depictions of the form that sound creates. And you put a frequency or a tone or a sound in, this incredible structural geometric form shows. And then when you change the frequency, it collapses before a new form is created. And we may be in that chaotic level right now of the creation of a new form. And for a lot of people, it's like, what's going on? But it's okay, folks.
I always love the concepts of cymatics because it's such a powerful visual for people. And I've been reading a book the last little bit called Water Codes, and it's really brilliant book. It kind of ties in a lot of different work around what's been going on with water and research around it and structured and this fourth phase and all these different things. And very much along that line, because water is a liquid crystal, and basically what they are talking about, when things are coherent, it's in the coherency that carries mass amounts of information. And when things go to an incoherent, they can't carry the same information. I think of it like a radio station where you're dialed right into the station. You got a clear sound. As soon as you go slightly off, it's all fuzzy. You can't access the information. So I feel like we are moving through these waves of almost incoherence, coherence, and we're kind of getting pieces of information. And all of a sudden, I think we're going to eventually just move to a place of more and more coherence where we are going to be, boom, just downloaded by a lot of information.
Got to jump in this. You just reminded me. At one point, I was speaking to a fellow by the name of Howard Martin of HeartMath. And we were talking about heart-brain coherence, which is so very, very important, which is mostly created through the phenomena of appreciation and gratitude. But we were looking at the, if you like, waveform of heart-brain coherence. I said, well, that looks like a normal, healthy, harmonious sound wave. And then he showed one of fear. I said, that looks just like noise. If you see the sound wave of noise, it's all scattered and whatnot. So on a level, fear is like noise.
Yeah.
I thought that was...
It was great.
Well, I think that's all important because it just shows the disruption that takes place in coherence, I think. And then it makes it actually, fear actually from that point creates this noise so that you can't actually access the information that you're actually, this is why so many people right now, I think in general, are come to a place of like, I don't know, confusion, because that is, I feel like it's just this white noise that fear does and doesn't allow people to actually access the, I would say like the higher sort of information that they're always available to them, but sometimes there's stuff that gets in the way with that. Fear is a big one that causes people. And that's what HeartMath showed too, that when you're in a state of heart-brain coherence, that you make better decisions. Your stress hormones go down, your anti-aging hormones go up. Our emotional regulation is better. I mean, everything, our self-regulation becomes better. All of these things improve in that state. So I think it's beautiful when you see the overlap like that too, that, your eye says, oh, well, that just looks like noise, just like Emoto would say, that just looks like non-forming crystal patterns that can't actually create any kind of cohesion and coherence.
Mud.
Yeah.
Right.
And I just love the metaphor that you just shared though, Jason, with, the radio dial and the white noise and the clearness when you are on the right station. And so, taking it back to sound, how do we get on that right station? And that is what a lot of people, but wait, how do I do this? How do I do this? And of course, because we work with sound, we can take our intentions of positivity and of course we've been practicing compassionate understanding,
Right.
and we can take those really high frequency attributes of the human spirit, and we can put sound with that, and that combination. And it reminds me, of course, of Jonathan's formula that he created 40 years ago. And that is frequency plus intent equals healing. And so we can take our sound, we can use our own voice, we can hum, we can tone, and we can hold the intention of raising our vibration and raising our frequency and sound forth with that intention and see it begin to shift and change ourselves and then our outer world.
I'm going to suggest that just because you work with sound, a lot of people go sound, music, they're musicians, whatever. We're not talking about that, folks. We're talking about sound as a vibrational phenomena that encompasses all that is. In the beginning was the Word, and the Lord said there, let there be light. This idea that everything is vibration. And therefore, once you understand that everything is vibration, then anything that you talk about, whether it's water, whether it's psychology, whether it's X, Y, or Z, can be understood in terms of being coherent vibration, incoherent vibration, things that basically resonate with us. And yes, we can then move forward with the metaphor of sound, self-created sound, which is a great adjunct to helping us resonate and find our harmony and health and balance, but isn't necessarily musical in origin. We can use music as the metaphor for all sorts of things as well, but it's, if you like, understanding sound is something that everyone can use. And you don't need to be a musician or anything like that to utilize some of the basic principles of sound, to encode into your consciousness and have a healthier, happier life.
Well, I loved what you guys were sharing too, about humming with your girls last night and how it just got louder and louder, and then it turned into laughter. And I thought, what an incredible healing experience that is. And of course, once again, you don't have to be a singer. You don't have to be a musician. You can use your voice. And that was such a beautiful example that you shared with your kids.
Beautiful. I think there's so much in what you both have just mentioned. One of them being first there was sound, and I love that. Paul Selig, who's going to be part of the series as well, one of his books is I Am Word. And even when we were doing, the humming yesterday, it was starting with the humming and whatever sounds we wanted to kind of tap into individually, the four of us, while we were lying in bed. And then it started to go to almost spontaneously. So we've taken a few of Paul Selig's courses as well. And at some point, the guides ask Paul to do an invocation, and it's through sound. And 3 times he just kind of sits, clears his throat, and makes a loud, higher note sound. And he does that 3 times. And when we were
An attunement.
Attunement, correct. And as we were doing the humming yesterday, it spontaneously turned into an attunement. Then we repeated it 2 or 3 times, and then it broke out into laughter. It definitely feels like this frequency, almost like a rupture that occurs through that process. And even with Dr. Todd Ovakadis, when we spoke with him, his pineal tones consists of specific tones, Lemurian tones. It's almost as if our future selves, which are probably, I think of it almost as if you guys coming back from the future in order to embody that which you know to be true, that which you know to be possible, fully embodied within this now time coordinate, so that you can remind all of us what the potential is for a future timeline that is beautiful and beneficial and cohesive. And it's through this connection to sound, and it's so simple and it's so subtle, that we are able to be catapulted into that future possibility, that future beautiful timeline.
Oh, wow. That is so beautiful. And you know what I want to say too, that laughter is sound, of course. And it reminded me of a quote that I read that Merlin said that laughter was the closest thing to truth. And when I think about, going from sound, whatever sound you're making, into laughter, wow, that's just the epitome of tuning into all that is, from my perspective.
Totally. I love, boy, a gazillion things going on.
I know.
We love Dr. Todd.
Oh, yeah.
Last time we saw him, we actually were at one of Lee's workshops, and he and I spontaneously started intoning the whales and dolphins together. It was hilarious. I mean, I just find all this stuff hilarious because it's all good. But I think on a level, as you're talking, I just want to mention, so we can go into it, because if I just jump into it right now, I'd like to talk about what we call, just briefly, the 4 pillars of sound healing, because they're overall, if you like, gestalts of vibration. And I'm just going to mention, the first is that everything is vibration, mention that. And the second is that intent is powerful, which of course the work of whether it's Masaru Emoto or Bruce Lipton or Joe Dispenza or any of these people are now really focusing on the power of our intention. And we can couple, as Andy said, intention or consciousness with sounds. We have frequency plus intent equals healing. But the next one, which I think is so very, very important, is we are all unique vibratory beings. And the reason I think this is so important is that it allows us our individuality, so that we don't go, this is it, this is whatever it is, because it may work for certain people, but not for others. I found out something a couple of days ago which floored me, because I had this whole, if you like, vision that music was God's way of gifting us with some sort of wonderful, vibratory, beauteous experience. And then I found out from a neurophysiologist that between 5 to 10% of our population suffers from anhedonism, from musical anhedonism. They don't get no juice out of music. It's just not there. And I thought that's so interesting, because we always say, okay, we are all unique vibratory beings. If something works for 80% of the population, you're doing really good. But for 20%, it's not going to work. It's, whether it's a pharmaceutical or a nutrition or X, Y, or Z, there are going to be people who do not react positively. And number one, you can't take that as a negative thing. Oh, they don't like this. We're all unique. And boy, if we can honor that, what a blessing that is. We have such a tendency, if somebody doesn't go with your way of thinking, of pointing a finger and saying, you're bad. That is not compassionate understanding. And the last one of the 4 is that silence is golden. And by that, because people now are so much into doing sound, making sound, using sound, and this is growing more and more and more. It's been outrageous in the last 40, 50 years since I've been doing it, to see the growth in the last 5 years. I've been tracking maybe how and why that happened. But one of the things that a lot of people are still missing, they get so enamored by the aspect of making sound and changing the vibratory pattern that they don't allow the space of silence, which is the yin to the yang of sound. And the silence is maybe, as Andy said to me a while ago, did you know that silent and listen are anagrams? I was like, no. But talk on that for a moment. Just...
well, when you think about, they're anagrams because they have the same letters in them. And when you really listen, when you're in that silence, that is where you begin to hear that inner wisdom, and it's in that silence too where the shifts and the changes begin to occur. And so when we were putting together these 4 pillars, we were talking about, there's so many people now that are, blessed be, into sound as a healing modality, which is just makes our hearts so happy. And we thought, let's just sort of bring into focus some aspects of sound that can lay a foundation for people who are into sound. And that was when we came up with the 4 pillars of sound. And all 4 of those are just, we feel, foundational when people are working with sound. And I want to just jump back for a minute to, to we are all unique vibratory beings. And I think that what happens if we can really begin to embrace that, we then honor who we are as a being of, this magnificent being that has come into this form of this humanness, and that we are all gifted and unique. And so we honor that. And then we begin to feel good about who we are. And then that's the energy that vibrates out into the world. And so I just want to encourage everyone to really know that they are perfect as they are. And it's the beautiful quote that you said at the very beginning too, Tia. And
Cahill Gibran.
Cahill Gibran's quote. And I don't know if you have it there. I'd love for you to share that again, because it really ties in with, we are all unique, vibratory beings.
Sure. Yes, we were actually speaking of Khalil Gibran just before the recording. I'll share this again. It was shared to me by a friend named John. So Khalil Gibran, and God said, love your enemy. And I obeyed him and loved myself.
That just gave me chills.
It's all really beautiful. And as you guys were talking, Andi, you totally pulled in exactly what I wanted to tie into as well. I was like, the silence and the unique vibratory being they're mirrors of each other. They come together. So it's like you were talking about, it's in that silence that you actually get to know yourself and your own vibration, your own frequency more clearly. And then this is the whole part of this new world. It's like, this was something that we were listening to the other day. We were doing a purification track by Jacqueline Oracle Girl, who does a lot of really beautiful work. And this is one of the messages that I think she was getting to. One of the biggest things that she speaks of right now that's really important is what she calls reawaken. It's literally just sitting, doing nothing, like daily, like doing nothing, like just sitting. And then the idea is that you are going to be kind of connecting and absorbing and filling with pure love, because we're all doing that. But it's this idea of just not doing anything. And I think it's in that space where we really get to know ourselves, because you'll see the patterns come up, you'll see these other things. And it's like, I feel like there's so much noise, so much background noise. It makes it really difficult to really know who we are. And we were having this conversation just earlier. Even when we look in what's going on in the world today, there is so much conversation that's in one direction and the other direction, and who's a good guy, who's a bad guy, what's real, what's not, what's true, what's false, all of this kind of stuff. And this is why I think this is so important, because at a certain point, it doesn't matter. It makes no difference what you think is going on there. Get into your own frequency, know yourself as clearly as possible, and then just bring that into the world. This is really when I think of like this new earth. It's every unique individual bringing their own uniqueness into this world and then acting from that place, and this uncensoring of who we are, and this untethering from just big group consciousness around stuff. It's like, it's very easy to kind of get, into camps around things. And it's like, most of that's not even who we really are. So it's like, can we strip all of that away and just really connect down to what works for you? And then can you actually embody that and bring that into the world with less censorship of who you are?
And step out of this house of mirrors that is surrounding all of us. Just step out of it and just tune it within and bring that calibration and that chord into the world.
And there's a real sense of allowing when we are in that space of just being and really tuning into who we are, and allowing ourselves to come forth, that allowing then allows other people to come forth. And then we can plug in that compassionate understanding. And voila, we have a lovely aspect of the new earth.
Can I just jump in on a couple of things that are happening as you all were speaking? One of them was, which is exactly what I'm going to say, is that that the aspect of silence is so not understood. I don't know if the word is foreign or whatnot, that when people are speaking, oftentimes the other person has already got an answer to what the person is not done saying, because we're not in silence enough to even listen to what in conversation. That's number one. So let's all listen. But number two, even with regard to conversation, if frequency plus intent equals healing, the conversational voice can be a healing sound instrument if we can encode it with the energy of compassion, of kindness. If we can remember that, that could shift so much stuff.
This is why I think you guys are from the future. I really feel like what you're presenting and what you're reminding all of us as far as a possibility in the here and now is so profound that it's oftentimes overlooked or underrated, because people oftentimes feel like it needs to be more complicated. So this goes to, I guess, the technologies that are coming out now, and there are so many that are healing technologies and modalities that are coming out. Some of them cutting edge, new devices and units, and I feel like it's almost, these could almost be a bridge to what it is that you're speaking of. A bridge, because we ultimately innately know how to heal ourselves. We ultimately innately know how to return to that deeper inner connection, inner knowing of what it is that we need to do, what it is that we can leave behind in order to come to a place of peace and serenity and calm and wholeness. But perhaps we need this technology here and now in order to remind us that that is a possibility. But what you're speaking of is almost so simple and profound, and probably light years ahead of what our current time might be ready for. But more people are tuning into it. So,
and another thing, I think that there's probably a place for certain technologies too, because you got to remember too, we also live in a world that is bombarded by a lot of other stuff that actually does create incoherence and disrupts our frequencies. I mean, you just look at, if you just do a dive into the literature on the effects of EMF on structured water or these types of things, you can't help but know that that has an effect on things. So what a lot of times we forget is that just because it is outside of what we perceive through the five senses doesn't mean it doesn't have a very direct physiological effect on the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual aspects of who we are. So to me, there's bridging technology that I think can be used to assist what we are capable about doing naturally, to a point where we actually really fine tune what we're doing with technology, so that we only get, this is like the idea of what do we bring forward and what do we leave behind. There's a lot of benefits to technology, and there's also a lot of stuff that actually does harm that would not be beneficial. So if we can remove that, I feel like then it's just going to be a lot easier to tap into all of that stuff that we innately do. Right now, I think any help we can get where we're doing with sound, if we can incorporate it with specific technology, all of that is going to help us get further up the ladder there.
Real quick, humans love toys, and while we're totally into using the voice or whatnot, sometimes you're in a place where you need help. So whether it's tuning forks or some sort of more complicated, but instrument, we need assistance. I'm totally in agreement. Humans also love toys. It's just part of our developmental process. And perhaps we'll get to the place where we don't need them. And how cool that, once again, as you all know, we've collectively been in this field for a whole lot longer than either of us have been alive, which is a long time. And we've got a whole deep repertoire background of all sorts of different sounds, harmonics, mantras, tuning forks, bowls, bells, whatever you like, as well as pretty complex scientific instruments that may be from the future. And these are all just wonderful. And yet, on a level, we've been focusing on the humble yet profoundly powerful hum. And that simply is because on a level, we've found it personally the most effective sound that can affect, shift, and change the largest amount of people. Because among other things, everybody can hum, babies, old people, whomever, everybody, if you got a voice, you can hum. But number two, you don't judge yourself, because people are so judgmental about working with their own sounds and their own voices that the hum is not one that can do it. And also it's non-denominational. If I start dealing with a mantra or whatnot, there's going to be a certain population that's going to go, no, that's a heathen sound, I'm not going to go with it. Nobody is going to give you a hard time with the hum, though the hum is one of the great sacred sounds, and in fact, it may have been the original sound of creation.
It ties me into as well, then, from your experience of doing a lot of this stuff over the years, I would love to know, just from your personal experience, what are some of the things that you found were more sort of fads that maybe you tried out that sounded like they were really great, but they just didn't last, or they didn't hold what you felt like you really needed, what was really working? From your years of going through this, what have you distilled down that you feel really, really does work? Like, that's really at the heart from a perspective of sound healing, from that sort of ballpark, because that's sort of your window of expertise. What have you guys found when you distill it all down, and what's not so important?
There's so many different things that work for different people. Okay, number one. And even though one of the things that I have personal difficulty is getting into specific frequencies, having certain specific attributes. I think on a level, they may be the pet rock of sound. There are millions of people who are into this, and if they have the belief in it, frequency plus intent, if they have the belief in it, then it's real for them, and I will never say, hey, that's ridiculous. But at the same time, it's very, very limiting to believe that one particular frequency is the sound of love or the sound of X, Y, or Z, because we are so unique, so multifoliate. It's as though you're saying, eat your broccoli, but only eat your broccoli because that's the only thing that's going to give you nutrition. I don't know about that. So with that in mind, there's just, whether it's tuning forks, bowls, mantras, harmonics, I'm one of the few humans that can do the Tibetan deep voice, which is a powerful, huge, major thing. But I've taught maybe a half a dozen people how to do this, because it's not something people want to pick it up, but really you can lose your voice if you don't do it right. So, everything in its good time with the correct resonant frequency of the person. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised that that's your answer, because it ties back to one of your tenets of sound healing, that we're all unique vibratory beings.
And I think it was that Tibetan sound that actually shut down Lee Carroll's interview.
It does. I actually was real quick. We also work with this phenomenon called the divine name, which is wonderful. Something I've worked with Greg Braden with, and it's a harmonically related ancient sacred sound. And a couple of weeks ago, I was working with a fellow who's a Harvard psychiatrist, showing it to him. As soon as I did it, just totally, we were on Zoom, and all of a sudden, Zoom malfunction. And he said, I've got to get some psychics to see what's happening when you do that. And I said, okay. So there are a lot of different sounds, and it depends upon the person, because the sound is one thing, but the person creating it is another. And one of the things that, like when we teach the divine name, just making the sound by itself without the, if you like, sacredness, the encodement of it, just it's like eating plastic fruit. It doesn't have the nourishment. So you've got to really put your chi, your consciousness, your understanding, your being into the sound as well.
Well, and Jason, you were saying, what have you guys sort of distilled it down to? And of course, the thing that popped into my mind right away was, with all the sounds that we've worked with all the healing instruments that we've, had experience with and shared. And I mean, a lot has happened through all these years. And we just go back to the hum,
Right.
the beauty of that everyone can do this and that it really works. And what I wanted to say about that earlier too was, when we're talking about, the new earth and, like bringing in the positivity and the love and the compassion and all of that. And I was saying, but how do you do that? And with all the noise that is out there and all the different, things that are coming into people and the confusion and, it's like, yeah, I want to be a part of that new earth, but I'm in like this horrible place and I've got all this internal pain going on and I've got, all these inner woundings that I'm trying to heal. And how do I get through all that? And when we hum, that is such a powerful tool for individuals to begin to help themselves with their own healing process, because they are able to go into themselves with that hum. And when they are frustrated, they're feeling angry, they're really out of sorts, they're so far away from that new earth energy that we're talking about that it's like, I'm giving up. No, just bring it back through humming and just being in that simple yet effective way of just closing your eyes, taking some nice deep breaths, and begin to and just beginning to do that a few times, all of a sudden, you begin to feel that inner balance. And so I go back to the hum, the humble hum.
And I'm going to just, I snuck in the hum as you were doing it just so I could basically have the experience, because, we're talking about, once again, the science and whatnot, but it's really the experience. And in our book, The Humming Effect, first chapter, we've got about half a dozen or more positive physiological benefits that have been scientifically, created, whether it's lowering heart rate, respiration, the release of nitric oxide, the release of melatonin, the release of X, Y, or Z. This is good because then people believe it, because otherwise, hey, everybody can hum. How can this be? But I'm going to share just a story with you. A couple of days ago, this fellow came over to the house. He's a friend of mine, to do some work at the house. And I asked how his son was, because he said, oh, he's got some problems and he's kind of bipolar. And I said, oh, I'm sorry about that. And we walked out to his truck and his son was there. His son was probably in his early 20s. And I walked over and said, hi, I'm Jonathan, how are you? And he looked at me and there's just tears were flowing totally. And my heart just went out, and I said, hey, I said, if we play a game with me? And I basically just shared a little bit of how to do a hum and what would happen. And he did a few hums, and I said, how do you feel? He said, better. I said, yeah, okay. So we gave him a copy of The Humming Effect. I said, you read that and get back to me. Take one and call me in the morning. But the whole point is there's so much, oh my goodness gracious, pain. And the hum is not a be-all and end-all, but it's certainly a tool that we can all use to assist in relieving stress and assist in basically generating some, if you like, anti-cortisol type of phenomena in doing different things. And it's just, because we're here to help people and make them feel better. That's our purpose, all of us, I know. And bottom line, whatever we can put in our bag of tricks, and I think in terms of our bag of tricks, we should have as many toys as possible that can work for as many people as possible, so we can affect, shift, and change as many people as possible. If there's a new earth, we need to basically embrace the old earth and see what we can do to assist, guide, and change it.
And also, when we are doing something as simple as humming, there's so many physiological things that are happening in our bodies. Our heart rate is lowered. Our blood pressure is lowered. There's a release of oxytocin. There's a release of melatonin, and there's a release of nitric oxide. And so with all of these physiological benefits, through humming, through our voice, we begin to breathe out. We begin to feel some kind of sense of, okay, I think I can make it. I think I can make it.
Right. I have to just jump in for a second, tying stuff in. A couple of months ago, for whatever reason, I got really into seeing if the hum could lower blood pressure. And I started checking this out, and nothing was happening. I'm going to be, we have protocols of conscious humming. And one of them is to hum about 4 times. And then I would slam the cuff on myself, do it, and nothing happened. But as soon as the last protocol is be in silence for an equal amount of time. So if you hum for 4 or 5 times, be in silence for 4 or 5 breaths. As soon as I did that, blood pressure would go down 20 points or more. I went, whoa, I forgot to be in silence. And it's such a key element. So I just wanted to bring that back to honoring it again, because not only is it just a concept, it's a reality.
There's so much in silence. There is, like, just because we think it's silent, we think that, okay, there must not be much in that. Or I hear my teenager sometimes, well, he's an adult now, he's 18, but, oh, Mom, I'm bored. I can't be quiet. But we miss out on it if we don't experience it, because I find that especially after humming, or especially after what was the concerts that we would go to?
Like the sound healing, or the cacao ceremonies, and
any sort of sound ceremony that we would attend. It's actually within the silence that you would feel so many inner rumblings and processes that the body is working through. And there's so much richness there, that if we can just actually come to that place where we can allow ourselves to be within that stillness, we'll be introduced almost, literally to another world, to another reality that we perhaps, missed out on if we're constantly go, go, go.
Well, and it's actually a natural cycle, really. I mean, it's like, I remember even talking to Dr. Amit Goswami, and he would, from a quantum sort of physics perspective, when he's talking about, manifestation, he goes, it's do, be, do, be, do, be, do, be, do. So you do, and then you be, and then you do, and then you be. And it's like, depending on parts of the world, so some parts are too much be, some parts are too much do. He goes, you need to have both. It's like you get the divine inspiration arises in the silence, which then musters the inspiration that then causes you to do. And then that does it. And then you come back into the stillness again. It's an ebb and a flow.
Was Frank Sinatra trying to tell us something when he sang Strangers in the Night? When you think about it, he went, doobie doobie doo.
I was trying to say
maybe that's like the message where it's like it came into Frank first, and whether he was going to do it, and then later it was like, nope, he didn't do that, so we sent it over to Amit.
There you go.
we call it the waveform phenomenon, because it's like at some point we may write a book called Life is Like a Wave, because we have so much observed the waveform phenomena. You're in a crowded waveform and the traffic is going, and you can barely move, and then you wait 5 minutes and there's nobody there. I mean, you see this all the time. It's something we like want to just say to people, hey, don't be stressed out because it's this frenetic energy. Wait a couple of minutes. It'll shift and change. It's part of the doobie-doobie-doo phenomena, you know?
But you know, you guys, with this silence, so many people are so unfamiliar with silence, and our culture is, there's so much, as we've talked about, so much noise, and so being in silence is something that is so foreign to many people, that's why we always like to talk about it and bring it into consciousness as much as possible, because then people begin to go, oh wow, I never thought about that. Yeah, I think I'll be in silence for a while. But
Well,
there, you know, it's education.
yeah, and outright uncomfortable with it. You know, and I actually think it's a really good practice for people when you're in a conversation and you hit a silence. Can you stay in that for a little bit? What arises? Because very quickly you find what'll happen is like you sort of just jump to something because you feel uncomfortable. I mean, these are where the beauty, I think, of just practicing silence. You stay with sensations of sometimes discomfort longer to a point that they don't bother you as much. And then you've got more capacity and more resilience for that when you bring it into your life.
Well, you know, and as a psychotherapist, of course, you know, I've been trained to listen. And so working with clients, that silence, I'm very comfortable with, but they're initially maybe not so much. But then over time, it's like all, like you were just saying, Jason, all of this other stuff arises. You know, what is it that is going to come forth? And it's only when you can be quiet just for a while, however long you can be. It's amazing the healing that can really happen, because you get to know yourself. And that's, you know, I take it back to know thyself. I think that was up on in the
gates of
Delphi.
We'll remember it somewhere. I was like, oh yeah.
But anyway, know thyself.
Right.
Know thyself.
And it's so interesting because whether it's yoga or meditation, which is really found in every tradition on the planet, you know, being in silence is key. And for example, certain things like TM, for example, if nothing else, TM is a great technique. You're repeating a mantra, but basically just quieting what they call the monkey mind, because, you know, we have so much internal chatter. If we can, it's like going on vacation. If we can just put that critter to rest for a little while, what a blessing it is to our hearts, minds, and spirits to be able to be in silence. And however we can do that.
I know. I decided that with my monkey mind, that it's like training a 2-year-old to, you know, stop. Stop. But
so TM, transcendental meditation, for those who are not familiar. And I was just I was thinking, you know, I think the key for meditation for me personally has been the release of resistance. So like, or even expectation of what it needs to be like. So if I can just be in the quiet and the mind kind of goes off somewhere, and then it's like, oh yeah, come back. So it's like if I'm really stern with that monkey that's veered off, or that small child within that has scurried off somewhere, then there's going to be this inner battle that takes place. But if I take notice, oh, the child has gone off, or the monkey has gone off to chase some sparkly thing over there, and then just kind of guide it back, there's just this much more gentler way of just being within my own presence, which is essentially, this is what I think of when I think of, you know, God consciousness or the innate, is when I keep showing up for that presence within, I'm allowing my vessel to actually open up more to that divine self, which is always present.
One thing that just was crossing my mind as we were talking about this, another wonderful tool for sort of being in that silence and is just simply to listen. It's actually a very advanced yogic technique called Shabd Yoga, where you listen to the internal, if you like, sounds or the whatnot, but just being there, that'll also oftentimes help. And I have a very, very active mind. So once again, just closing my eyes and just listening within is a very, very good tool. Once again, there are a gazillion different tools depending upon the person and their resonance together, what works for them.
And Tia, I loved the way that you just described that gentleness of, oh yes, come on back, in that gentle way, rather than, being really stern with it. And I think that that was just so beautifully said. I went, yeah. And then I had this image of, a small child that, may be really into mischief or whatever. And you just very gently bring him over and why don't you color over here, honey? And so it's that gentleness that we can be with ourselves, I think is also an important key in terms of opening up to the new earth.
And as you said, the Gibran quote of like just loving yourself. I mean, how can you be harsh with yourself if you're loving yourself?
When we were at a conference or retreat years back with Pema Chodron, and they were talking about the monkey mind, and it was sort of the idea of like, it's kind of like sitting down with a really dear, dear old friend that you love very much, but kind of drives you crazy. And can you just sit there and sort of
and show up for them and have tea with them every day?
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Oh.
Do we need to define the monkey mind? If we defined TM, do we need to define the monkey mind for anyone who's listening going, what the heck is the monkey mind?
Go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to ask you.
I think of the monkey mind like that endless busyness,
jumping from branch to branch,
another thing, thought to thought. How you picture any of the stories, how you see the monkeys that are always just this curious, like moving around and
it's like
and usually causing mischief.
And you're on one minute you're thinking about the career, your work, what you have to do tomorrow, and the next minute you're thinking about the meal that you have to make the next day, and the next moment, oh shoot, what am I going to do with regards to my finances and my debt here, and on to the next. So it's just branch to branch, thought to thought to thought.
I got a really active monkey mind. Maybe that's why once again, physician heal myself. And maybe that's why I got into whether it's creating music or doing these different things, or the hum is brilliant for getting the monkey mind. It really is, because once you start humming, it basically, takes care of all sorts of things because you're in the phenomena of the sound.
Can I ask you guys one question?
I'll do it.
When you've been talking about compassion and sort of these sorts of characteristics coming into the new world more. When we talk about living in a way that doesn't create harm, what does that mean from your perspective? What does that look like? What are the sort of, if you round that out, what sort of is a tangible for people and what that actually looks like to show up in the world in that way?
That's such an awareness, and I'm going to just jump on this right now. Great, but for some reason, okay, so I'm going to share with you that it's awareness, among other things. But what my monkey mind jumped to, but it was probably a coherent place, is the fact that we are in the semi-suburbs, maybe the city or whatnot, but people have lawns, and during the summer, most Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday afternoons, there's somebody with a lawnmower or a leaf blower that is
always
making some sort of hideous noise around. And that really disturbs me because I'm very sound sensitive, and most people are, without going into the physics of it, why that happens. And I was thinking, boy, if these people were aware of the power of sound, maybe they would do it all together or something like that. But I think oftentimes we're unaware of anything but what's happening to us. And so we don't take into consideration what's happening even to our partner or to other people around. Andi is so aware of this. It's an amazing phenomenon. And I bow to you, my goddess, but it's, you know, I'm a little more, hey, I don't care, I'm out there, you know, but I try to be a little aware.
Well, and I think to answer your question, Jason, is, you know, how can we be without doing harm? And what came to my mind right away was being, you know, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. And I think one of the things that I find quite, well, I find it too frequency is that it's like people aren't considerate of other people around them. And I think if we can begin to be more considerate of those people who are around us and not just so focused on me, and it's like, but wait a minute, you know, let's allow other people to share. And yeah, you want to say something?
I just have to jump in. I think that's beautiful.
But I mean, that was really all I wanted to say.
That was beautiful. I totally think the awareness and all, we're talking about awareness. I think as long as we hold an awareness of greed, of need of greed, a need of lack, a need to have more power, a need to have more X, Y, or Z, more. As long as that is in our awareness field, we are less likely to be not only compassionate, which is a huge thing, but just even concerned about other people who are around us. That's what you were saying.
Exactly.
And I mean, what a concept would it be if we began to go, hey, this stuff is not bringing me happiness. You know, the more toys is great, but, you know, more toys does not mostly make one happy. And it's whether you're dealing with Maslow's hierarchy of needs or whatnot, as long as you have some food and a house over your head or some sort of a shelter or whatnot. I remember reading fairly recently, it's probably not true, but it seemed like a great metaphor, was the fact that for most people in like the United States, about $75,000 was the break-even point where they could get whatever they needed. And after that, and they were happy and they had their needs taken care of. And after that, not so much. And, you know, yet you have people who are, you know, they don't know when to stop because it has become like an addictive phenomena for them to just, you know, continue and feed themselves. And it's sad because I think it certainly contributed to a lot of the chaos, a lot of the fear, because if you're in competition because you need more money, you use fear to step on the other person. It's that type of, you know, self-sustaining phenomena that ultimately doesn't do much good in terms of doing unto others.
Yeah. And I think being mindful of those around us. I know it was really interesting. We were mentioning that last night. We went to a dinner theater, and it was just wonderful. It was so much fun. And at the very beginning, they made an announcement, and they said, there is absolutely no filming, no pictures taken. Everyone right now, put your phones away. And I went, hallelujah. Because, you know, when you're around other people and they're like constantly looking at their phone, and even in a movie theater, people even do that. And it just blows my mind. It's like, wait a minute, that's so annoying for those people that are around you. And so to be mindful of people around you, I think that that's a beautiful way to do no harm.
But that brings into question the concept of technology. And, you know, what is correct use of technology? I don't know. I have no answer to this. But as you well know, there are a lot of these social media platforms that literally are so addictive and self-driving, and therefore people, and I don't know what to say, but there's a whole lot of stuff going on there that is not necessarily beneficial for the if you like, higher consciousness of all, because people just, it becomes a very, very much me phenomena, which I don't know where or what to do about that, but I just bring it up because I think technology is great if it's used appropriately. And I'm not one to tell you how to use it appropriately, but that would be cool if we could.
Yeah, I think it's a really important conversation to have because I think there's a lot of layers to it and a lot of perspectives on it. Just what it means to do no harm.
And I think you've beautifully described our humanity of what we innately want to be considerate and kind to each other. I think what we've recognized and what we're seeing play out, especially here in Canada, is that that's actually being used in an inverted way. Like we're seeing.
Well, it can be manipulated because part of it is, I think that when that is a desire for people, and I think at the end of the day, that's what we want. I think that's what people want to experience, that
Lovingness.
This lovingness and this care. One thing that came up around doing no harm was also not allowing what is not true to evolve and to not speak up around things. I think of it like Desmond Tutu said once when he said, if you see a child being abused, you naturally get angry. That's a natural response. And then that's actually an appropriate response for that to cause you to act. And then from that, I think then that can shift into lovingness for that and everything. But there's this, it kind of comes back to me about honoring what is actually coming up. Because what I feel like happens right now, I feel like we get natural inklings that come up. And then rather than a lot of times honoring them, maybe because we don't spend enough time in silence and we're not connecting to it, we then almost look out to see if it is supported by the outside world or not supported. And then we kind of self-censor. And I think there's a lot of that going on. And to me, this is a part of this concept of our own unique vibratory state stepping in. And what does that mean? And if there's things that don't feel okay that are happening, is it okay to just be quiet and sort of in the background? Or how do we actually bring about what is we want to do? What do we actually do? What do we say no to that's not actually appropriate or not okay? These are all sort of these concepts that I think are playing around. And what does that look like for each individual? I don't think there's any one specific right answer for that. But I think if we are able to find that quietness, find that silence, get to really know who we are, and then I think that we will bring more of that into the world. And then from that place, what do we bring our attention and our choices and spend our money on? And what don't we? Based on who we are, not based on what maybe society has decided. This is something I'm personally exploring, is sort of like, who am I outside of all of these other things? Because you really have to kind of tether it apart because it's so intermixed.
Wow, there's a lot there for sure,
Totally.
Jason. Yeah, because it's like, where do you draw the line in terms of, what do I speak out about, or what, do I? And I guess when you were talking, I was thinking to myself, you just have to be so true to yourself.
Yeah.
And I just kept going back to that, be true to your, listen within, and what is true for you, whether it's true for that person or that person or that person, that's okay. But what is true for you, and to be able to have the courage to share that, and to feel that you can share that in a way that can be received without creating more, friction around it.
If I can just add on, because it was interesting, that Desmond Tutu metaphor. And I was thinking, wow, how true that is, except, it really depends upon who you're dealing with, because there are times when perhaps you've passed by a parent who is disciplining or abusing their kid, and you step in to perhaps suggest that they do something else, and they get violent towards you. It's my kid, I can do what I want, get out of the way type of thing. And this is just a metaphor for all sorts of things. We probably have, been in situations where, for example, a parent is non-attentive to a group of kids and they're running rampant in a situation, which is taking up your space and really doing this and that. How does one kindly, compassionately create some sort of effect? You were talking about much larger things, such as major truths or non-truths that are being generated, and how do we deal with that? I mean, and I think, as Andy said, be true to yourself. And I guess we all are called upon to do that which is most effective. For myself, with regard to a lot of things, I've been more under the radar in terms of speaking out, because I thought oftentimes, like as we witness, oftentimes people may speak out and they get punished by different sources for speaking out and going against the, consensus consciousness. And so I, for myself, usually say, okay, let me kind of, I used to, when I was younger in my, tie-dye hippie Woodstock days, I marched against stuff. I don't know if that is for myself right now the most effective ways. Oftentimes finding just talking to people on a kind one-to-one basis. But I guess we have to once again find out what works for us.
Yeah. Well, and I don't have the answer to it either, because I honestly think it's very individual. There's definitely times where I don't feel genuine if I check in with myself to go and be in a march right at the moment for certain things. If that changed, then I would want to act on it. I think what I'm most curious about, and I would be curious to see for other people too, is it's almost like, what is the initial spark that arises before we go to what else would happen? What else would somebody else think? Well, how else might that kind of go? I'm just curious as to what's my organic initial inclination response before I then go to sort of over top of it to sort of decide then all those other things. I'm curious to just know myself. What are those first things that really come up? Because I feel like we've actually disregarded that so often. And I feel like we've actually got really out of touch with it, because we do often overlap it very quickly with what's appropriate, what's sort of, and this ties back to what you talked about with Star Trek, with time, space, we literally, what is appropriate at a certain time is almost always done by what the consensus of the world agrees to, which at different times could be very different. So I'm just curious as to what just comes up for people organically first.
Well, I'm going to get back into the compassionate understanding, because a few weeks ago I encountered a beloved friend talking to another friend. They had known each other, and all of a sudden they were talking about perhaps something political, and all of a sudden they were almost at arms with each other, and I sort of stepped in and tried to bring a commonality to their, well, yeah, but you both really want peace together, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know, because right now I'm seeing that if somebody is very, very vocal about something and has a strong feeling, trying to give them your perspective is oftentimes not effective. I don't know why. I don't know how.
Well, once again, I think it's really being clear with your own inner truth, but also then I want to add to that the element of gentleness. I just loved when you brought that up, Tia. And I think adding that element of gentleness can really, I don't know, it makes me feel better if I have a particular thing that I want to say to someone, but holding it in a gentle energy can be really helpful for me.
And just what was coming to my mind is, why is everyone so gosh darn angry now?
They all need to hum, honey. We need to have a global hum.
Well, you
Yeah.
know what was really interesting? We went to Dr. Peter Levine, the creator of
Somatic
somatic
experiencing.
experiencing, a few years ago. This is just before COVID, so I think in 2019. And he was talking about, we've deemed aggression and anger as being a negative thing.
Mhm.
However, um, within this realm of healing, if we're looking at how a person or how an animal heals, there is actually a surge of energy that is seen that can almost be deemed as aggression, but is actually very much a part of this healing pattern or healing circle that takes place. So just before, so let's say, and he was comparing our state within the animal world, and he was saying, if an animal goes off by themselves and they're kind of sitting on their own, they're just before they actually charge back to life or their regular way of being and functioning within the world, there is this upsurge of energy that takes place. And he said within a human, that can be seen as the aggressive state. So it could be that, a person who has been in depression or in a state of apathy. You can also look at this from
Consciousness
Dr.
scales too.
Hawkins' state of consciousness scale as well, where their depression is at what is it?
Depression is just a lower state of consciousness than, say, anger, as far as the actual power that's
Yeah,
able
for
to
sure.
create
Yeah,
change.
yeah.
So then, just as the person is starting to possibly recover from the state of apathy or depression, there is a surge of anger. And it's just a charge. It's just an energetic charge that arises. And it has, how people then express that charge can be in a detrimental way or in a beneficial way or in a neutral way. That's up to the individual person. However, that charge in itself or that aggression is very much, as Peter Levine was speaking of it, a part of that healing journey.
So in some ways, it just might be, depending on where people are at, even on a scale of consciousness, that just might be a phase that moves through, which then might propel them up eventually to courage, integrity, and eventually maybe up into lovingness in these different sorts of places.
So then I think of that, and maybe even on a global scale of what we've gone into this feeling of despair. I mean, during the BC fires here on the west coast of Canada, we had apparently dipped to 20, which is very, very low on that level of consciousness scale. But maybe possibly as we start to rise in our consciousness, as we dip down and then we're able to bounce back up, maybe that surge of energy could be, possibly viewed as aggression, but it's again that surge rising up in order for us to break through, to move through and to keep rising up. But again, how a person then expresses that surge is definitely up to the individual.
I wasn't suggesting that anger is bad, but I think mass collective anger that lingers for a really long time could be questioned.
Well, and also what was coming up for me when you were sharing that is that, we are these emotional beings, and we have all of these layers and these parts of our emotional bodies that need to be expressed. And so being able to express them in healthy ways, so that when those surges come up, to be able to somehow learn how to express in a healthy way and to do no harm as you're expressing those emotions. But it just made me feel like we're just so all human, and these emotions just surge, and wow, how do we handle them? And we have to be taught, I think, how to handle them, because Otherwise, they can just go off the rail. But that's why we talk about humming, because, when
Yeah.
you get in that place where you are really, those emotions have just surged and you don't know what to do with them. You have to do something with them in a healthy way.
I have a beloved friend and he's a wonderful being, and he's angry all the time. And for him, anger is his superpower. He's afraid if he loses his anger, he will no longer have the chi and the drive to be able to do this and that. And I am concerned because I love him dearly. And ultimately, I think that collectively, long-term anger is not a superpower. It could be a detriment. And I am concerned, and I want him to live a long, healthy life because he's a kind, compassionate person. He's just really angry. It's like, oh man, hey.
No, I totally agree. I don't think there's any benefit to long-term anger at all. I think of it all as cycles moving through, and what's sort of a natural cycle, and where you kind of, your friend could eventually find that if he could actually move past anger, he might find that, well, I move up to a place of like enthusiasm, and there's so much power in that than there is in anger. If I act from love, holy cow, now I'm in a massive, powerful field for change. I think that's ultimately where we all want to see things keep moving. And I'm saying this because I think it just helps to give people perspectives on when people are going through different things and what people are experiencing and how we're all traversing through these different experiences. At the end of the day, anger, I think, can be a phase that can have a lot more volition in it than, say, apathy or shame or something along these lines. But there's much more powerful fields, and anger doesn't do any good if it gets directed towards violence and hatred. Now you're acting from a place of malice. That doesn't do the world any good. But personally, you might be able to use the anger, if it's inherent there, as a part of the healing cycle. So you don't have to always push it away, but find exactly what you said, Andi. What are some therapeutic ways for me to be able to express it in a healthy way that allows me to then transition to the next phase and the next phase?
I wonder if this long-term anger that my friend, I use him as an example, and he's a beautiful, just lovely.
Yeah.
And I think, Andi, as a psychotherapist, a lot of his issues come from early childhood abuse that has just not been, and I wonder if that might be something that is found with a lot of people, either feeling that they have no control. I mean, there are a gazillion different things, and our purpose in creating new planet is not to focus on anger as the aspect of the be all and end all, but it's when my question is, why is everybody so angry? There is a lot of anger, there is a lot of depression, and whatever we can do, because these are all great stages of evolutionary development. I guess if we just get locked somewhere, though, it's not evolution.
Absolutely. Yeah, well said.
Jonathan, I wanted to ask you, before we started the recording, you had mentioned that you had an experience a little while ago, and I said, okay, let's get into that during the recording. Can you share that, please?
Okay.
You remember?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. It's a good one.
The last couple of weeks have been some interesting things that have come. But as a bottom line, I like to think of myself as a visionary looking for ways to shift and change. And if I come from the future, well, by gosh and by golly, until a couple of weeks ago, I was going, I have only seen two possible futures. And being a science fiction enthusiast, they're both science fiction. One is the Mad Max apocalyptic future, and the other one is the 1984 dictatorial fascistic control future. And I said, and then I was woken one morning, and this inner voice or whatnot said, no, you are part of the new future, and it happened a while ago. You just missed it. And it's literally where we are all, which is creating this new phenomena. You are manifesting it, and I said, well, hallelujah, how cool is that? So listen, kids, we're part of the new future.
I like that, because I really feel like it ties back. We are all pioneers, and it really is in each and every one of our hands. So this is why re-listen to some of this part, practice the humming, practice the silence, practice the stillness, and get really clear with what you want.
Know thyself.
Yeah, it's the know thyself. And then from that, how do you bring more of you and that from that place into the world? Because that's what's ultimately going to make it unique and beautiful. Guys, where can people learn more about the work that you guys are doing and anything that you've got coming up?
And any last final messages that you'd like to share?
Well, our website is healingsounds.com, and sounds is plural. And we have a ton of information there on sound, our books, our lots of blogs, and so much information. It's more of an educational, it's both educational, and we have our healing sound tools, etc. And once a month, we do what we call a sound satsang. And we do this where we choose a particular topic on sound, and we dialogue. Jonathan and I dialogue back and forth with it. And then we do
lead audience. And it's live, and we do it in conjunction with Humanities team and Sound Healers Association and whatnot. So we're grateful for that. And then we pop those up on our fabulous YouTube site, which is Jonathan Goldman Official. And one last one, I don't know if it's appropriate or not, but right now I have an online seminar that is being done through the Shift Network, which is a brilliant 7-session teaching experience that I have a degree in filmmaking. So many years ago, I have been aware, what is the best way of teaching and sharing this information? If I had a limited amount of time, what would I teach? How would I teach it? And I manifested it through this. So I invite anybody to check it out. It's called Sacred Vibrational Frequencies. And
Jonathan, when does that start? Tell people when it starts.
Well, if this were going live, it starts on September, tomorrow. But I don't think this is live, but you can still, through the Shift Network, and you guys might have a link to it or not. And it's really good. I like to try to produce things that are quality items, whether they're tuning forks or, humming techniques. Oh, the last thing that I do want to share, and this is one of the big in the future, because as we get older, more and more people are concerned about our aging. And I had a fair, this is not any more than the realization that we are part of the new earth, but just the fact that there are, I believe, and I think that we will, in the not too distant future, actually be getting some research so people take it seriously, but ways of working with the hum, simply with a little bit of visualization. That's the whole thing, our consciousness, our intent, to be able to create what is called neurogenesis, which is the, if you like, new connections in the brain of nerve cells, which will help with memory and all sorts of other things. I actually know this deep in my core that this is really true. I've known it for a really long time and have not manifested in the laboratory to go, see, Dr. Goldman says this is what you do. But I'm really hopeful that I can find some other doctors and whatnot who will prove this. But my friends, we can hum. Even doing that, I feel my cranium, and I can go through a whole explanation of how or why. Go check out our book also, The Humming Effect. It's way cool. And we talk about that in it. The book was initially going to be called The Humming Hypothesis, because the hypothesis is that you can generate new neural synaptic connections through self-created mechanical resonance of the sound. But we said too many people are not going to know what a hypothesis is. So they call it the humming effect.
And I think it's beautiful to actually bring this humming to children, because there's no intellectual background that they need. They are ready and open and willing, and they show up. And to incorporate that within the everyday as caregivers and parents and grandparents with our young ones is such a gift, because again, like you said, it's another tool in their toolbox that they can utilize at any time, anywhere, any place.
That becomes totally normalized.
It's a
for
default.
them.
Yeah.
It's just like they'll just start doing it, and you'll actually see them even humming to themselves. I think even as their own self-regulation now at different times. So
Exactly.
they'll know what it feels like in their body, and then they'll know how to use it without anybody telling them how to use it after a point.
Beautiful. And I just want to say that children love working with sound and humming and toning and tuning forks and all of it. They are just little sponges and they love it. So that, yes.
I have to do this because I have this here. It's a little sheet with our humming protocols, but I just want to say this to people. Number one, for conscious humming, you check yourself out. First of all, where are you?
Mm-hmm.
Number two,
you're going to take a nice deep breath, a nice belly breath, diaphragmatic breath, breathing in, and then on the exhale, hum.
And number three, keep your lips closed, because if you open your lips, it's not a hum, but you got to have your lips closed. Number four, you hum on one note. You don't do zippity-doo-dah or the 1812 overture. Those are all great, but for conscious humming, no. Just Number five, you hum at a comfortable pitch, something within very close to your regular conversational vocal range. You don't want to strain yourself. More is not better, louder is not better, etc.
And lastly, be in silence for a equal amount of time. Like if you hum for 2 or 3 or 4 times, then be in silence for that same length of time. And then you can hum again. But those are our protocols of conscious humming.
So we just say conscious humming because it's like, okay, all of a sudden, people hum and when they're happy and they're unconscious, great. If we hum when we're conscious, you can have a whole different effect. Wanted to share that with you because anytime we're together, hey.
Yeah.
We appreciate that. Thank you so much. And again, I am encourage all caregivers to share this with their little ones. Let this be a part of their everyday.
Yeah, let us know how that goes. We'd love to hear feedback on that too, with families exploring it or just you on your own trying it out. Let us know.
And I wonder,
easy peasy. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, for sure. And I wonder if you would oblige us and actually, since we started off with an invocation, if we can possibly end on the divine name that you were speaking of.
We will do that. Thank you. We've never done that before. And in order to do this, of course, we have to do the Shama El invocation again. So we encode it onto the divine name with our purpose, etc.
So we invoke the spirit of Shama El, angel of sacred sound. May the sound of light surround us. May the light of sound guide us. May sacred sound come through us for the harmony of all.
Ready?
We are ready to do the divine name. Thank you for letting us share that. And that was a series of vowel sounds in a sequence that was very orderly. That was all we were doing. And we have been teaching this on our Sound Sat song. So perhaps people can join us for more information.
You can find out more about it at our website. And we trust that didn't blow out your Zoom session, and blessed be. That's because we did the invocation before, and everything is.
That's why we left it for last, just in case.
Just in case. Guys, we'll put all of the information in the show notes so people can check all of that stuff out. And guys, as always, what an honor and a pleasure to chat with you both.
Oh,
Love
you
you
guys,
both.
we just love you guys, and just send so many blessings of love and light through sound to you and your beautiful family.
And to all people who are watching
Yes.
now or forever. And we like to say, with our love, our light, and our sound, we can make a difference.
And we heal the planet.
We heal ourselves,
We heal ourselves.
and we heal the planet.
Mm.
Thank you.